All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction, Ron. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I'm Adam Khan. I am one of the cloud solutions architect for Microsoft. I focus on the Azure side of the world here at Microsoft. And today I will be talking about Azure Stack HCI. So I will start with what it is used for, and then we will kind of go into more detail. Azure Stack HCI is actually part of the Microsoft Azure products and family of products. It belongs in the category of hybrid cloud offerings that we have. And it's actually consists of three, our hybrid family consists of three solutions. Azure Stack Edge, which is used for small scale deployments for IoT or AI ML and smaller databases and things like that. Azure Stack HCI, which is we're going to focus today, is more for your on-prem full workloads. Azure Stack Hub is, I would say, is one of the older technology that's been out there. Azure Stack HCI and Edge came later on, and that seems to be kind of the new way to go. Azure Stack HCI, what HCI is hyperconverged infrastructure. And Microsoft thinks as Azure Hybrid as it has a comprehensive approach where we are offering a unique hybrid capability that give customers the flexibility to innovate anywhere in their environment. That anywhere could be their data center. It could be at the edge at different node locations. And it could be in AWS, Google Cloud, and other cloud locations as well. We make that possible with the combination of Azure Stack HCI and Azure Arc. Azure Arc is our offering that makes the Azure Stack HCI hybrid solution. So what is a Azure Stack HCI? It's a hybrid by design in combination with Azure Arc. It's an enterprise scale and it's designed by price performance. It uses familiar management and operations tools that your organization is probably already familiar with, and it has lots of choices of deployments, deployment options. What I mean by that, I will show later. Like you probably have some sort of vendor that you work with, Dell, HP, or Dell EMC now, or any hardware vendor that you work with. We support all their hardware models. When to use Azure Stack HCI? If you are looking to modernize and secure your data center. If you want to affordably modernize branch offices, you may have a lot of branch offices located all over the world, possibly. And if you want to get best performance out of your SQL Server deployments, and if you have virtual desktop requirements, those are kind of the very good use cases for Azure Stack HCI. So in the legacy world, or what it used to be, you used to have racks and racks of servers, network appliances, hypervisor, servers loaded with hypervisors and storage fabric and SAN and NAS, right? I mean, then hyperconverged infrastructure came about and things kind of got very lightweight, meaning you don't have to worry about the storage. All the storage is there, but it is all software defined. So networking is also software defined. So your number of racks got reduced, your expenses got reduced. So this is what HCI brings to your data centers. So we have done a lot of surveys, and one of the survey found that 54% of organizations expect deploying hyperconverged infrastructure to be among their most significant data center modernization investments over next to 18 months. There is a link down there. You can get the more details about that. And also 57% hyperconverged infrastructure investment year-over-year growth. from Q4 2017 through Q4 2018 to nearly $2 billion per quarter. That's also from another third party called IDC. And that's been going on. So what do you really need to deploy this? Basically, you are going to work with your current validated hardware vendor, and that's going to be the base or baseline or foundation for Stack HCI. Then we have incorporated the hyperconverged software, which consists of hypervisor or Hyper-V as the hypervisor for compute, STS, which is our storage, software-defined storage, and SDN, software-defined networking. So all three components are included in Windows 2000 Server 19 and onwards. So and it is a bare metal hypervisor or stack, HCI stack. And on top of that, you can use Windows Admin Center to manage the infrastructure, and then you can connect your on-prem Stack HCI to Azure Hybrid Services. So I mentioned you may have a particular or preferred hardware vendor right now, Dell EMC, or Hitachi or Cisco. So we support all these vendors. So we have 100 plus solutions and 20 plus partners who offer the validated hardware for Stack HCI. And it is available in all forms and form factors. Any one that works for your environment best, whichever one you are used to, you can pick any form factor from the hardware point of view. So how do you start? You can start very small scale. Just 2 servers and 4 SSDs or 2 SSDs and 4 HDDs. No minimum processor or memory requirement, 1 gigabyte, gigabits per second network adapter, and you are good to go. And as you expand, if you like it, you want to continue to use it, deploy a production workload, you can easily make that part of your stack, and you can start adding nodes to give you more scale out, scale in architecture, or scale up, scale out with no downtime. You can run Windows Server, Linux Server, Windows 10, any of the operating systems that are most common, Red Hat Linux, Ubuntu, SUSE, CentOS, Oracle Linux. So we support all these different vendors. You can manage that with Windows Admin Center, as I mentioned, or Windows PowerShell if you just like CLI, or System Center, VMM, or Hyper-V Manager. So you have the flexibility of using different tools to manage the environment. And then the infrastructure has the high availability and resiliency built in. So when you are writing to the disk, because it's using software-defined storage, which is spanned across multiple nodes. So your data is written to multiple disks. You can move the VM live from one node to another one. So if your node is going down for maintenance or something, there's hardware corruption going on, the VM can migrate to another node, and you will continue to operate without any interruption. So the licensing is included. So basically, the license includes hypervisor, software-defined storage, software-defined networking, management, and guest licenses. That's all part of Windows Server 2019 data center, or onwards 2019. Okay, so you got the HCI deployed in your data center, you're happy, and now you're thinking of, I want to expand to the cloud, to Azure, for example, and you want to take advantage of some of the Azure functionalities and capabilities, native services, for example, Azure Site Recovery. You want to utilize the Azure native backup services or Azure File Sync for distributed file system. You want to maybe utilize Azure Update Management, Azure Monitor, or Azure Security Center, which is Cloud Defender now, a Defender for Cloud. You can do that by taking advantage of something we call Azure Arc, I mentioned earlier. Azure Arc will let you take advantage of Azure services on your Stack HCI. Now, I just want to clarify, you can utilize Azure Arc even for your non-Stack HCI workload. So it's not specific to a Stack HCI. If you have workload right now and you want to take advantage of cloud services, you can deploy Arc agent and it gives you that capability. But Stack HCI and Azure Arc are very tightly integrated. So how do customers use hybrid? They extend on-premises into Azure, offsite backup, disaster recovery, extend on-premises capacity, and centrally manage from Azure, like updates, monitoring, security, and all those kind of things. Some of these services, as I mentioned earlier already, Azure Site Recovery, Azure Backup, Azure File Sync, Defender for Cloud, Azure Updates, and Monitor. So what will the architecture look like when you are actually using a Stack HCI on-prem and using Azure services? Basically, your Stack HCI hardware is your data center or co-location, and you are utilizing admin center to manage the infrastructure. Through Arc, you are utilizing cloud services in Azure using Azure Portal. So now Azure Portal can become your one place where you can manage everything in combination with admin center. We do have an admin center service available in Azure as well. You can also apply some of the Azure governance capabilities. For example, Azure Policy, RBAC, resource providers that all can be extended to Stack HCI. Okay, so where would you use those? I mentioned earlier, like branch location. So branch location definitely is one use case. Virtual desktop, high performance SQL server, trusted enterprise virtualization, scale out storage. Okay, so before I move forward, let me see. All right, there is a question for hypervisor. Can we run VMware or only Hyper-V? So Stack HCI is based on Hyper-V. It is not based on VMware. VMware has their own software-defined stack. This is Hyper-V based software-defined stack, meaning SDS and SDN and the compute virtualization is all based on Hyper-V. Does Microsoft offer any labs or setting up testing out Stack HCI? Very good question. So we do offer I will share the link after I'm done here. We do offer a capability where you can deploy the Stack HCI in Azure and see the experience, how it looks like. It's kind of a simulation of the Stack HCI environment. I will share the link and we have a whole team behind it. If you are interested, we can get in touch and they can help you some labs as well. So yes, it is available. It's easy to deploy in your own on-prem environment as well. But the simulator they have is you can deploy that in Azure without having to spend your own hardware.
Hey, by the way, this is Ron Gerber. Glad to get those questions. A couple more gift cards I got to send to David and Jonathan. Let's keep it up there, Adam.
Okay. All right. So branch office. So let's say you have offices all over the world and you want to, instead of, and these offices required 5 VMs, maybe 20 VMs, depending on where you have a limited on-site IT staff and may not have any IT staff at those locations. You want resiliency is a requirement and is sensitive to per location cost. Stack HCI makes perfect sense. Like I said, you can start with minimum 2 nodes and then you can grow from there. and you can manage everything from one location. You don't have to send anybody on site. So that one, that's very, very kind of a low hanging fruit. Okay. What did I do? Okay. You can take advantage of Azure Blob to form a cloud-based quorum and Azure Monitor for any monitoring. So it makes it the hybrid nature and hyperconverged infrastructure makes it very good use case for remote locations where you may not have any IT staff because you can manage everything remotely. Stay up despite multiple failures. Like I mentioned, you have data is written across multiple disks depending on number of nodes. And if there's something happens, you continue to operate. Your VM can move from one node to another, and data is available with RAID 5 parity and RAID 1 mirroring between servers. A lot of our customers are investing in AI and IoT, and Stack HCI is kind of perfect for that. You may not want to have a full-fledged deployment. You might be bringing the data, collecting data, doing some processing at a remote edge, and then bringing the results back to your data center or sending that to the cloud. Stack HCI makes a perfect use case for that. So Azure Stream Analytics, Anomaly Detection, Azure Cognitive Services, AI Vision Dev Kit, Redis Edge, Defender for Cloud, Azure Blob Storage, all that is available at the edge. The next use case, virtual desktop. We have a lot of customers who utilize remote desktop services, RDS, and Azure Virtual Desktop solution. So that is available you can have that deployed in the Azure as well as your on-prem, but the cost of deploying that on, large servers and SAN, that's very prohibitive. So Stack HCI makes perfect sense. You can deploy a bunch of servers that can support Stack HCI and run your RDS at the location where the users need remote desktop services. It improves their experience, and they don't have to bring the session or connect to a session that is running on your data center or in the cloud. SQL. SQL is definitely another good use case for Stack HCI. We have noticed in comparison to VMware Virtual SAN, we have seen better performance in terms of IOPS, and that results is available in the link that's mentioned here if you want to get more detail what testing was done, but definitely SQL Server performance is better on Stack HCI. And again, Hyper-V is a trusted enterprise virtualization technology that is validated, supported by Intel, AMD, and other different processors. And then we support scale out. Sorry, I'm going to skip this. It's just basically talking about the shielded virtual machines. That's a technology we use in Hyper-V. And then the scale out storage architecture. So you can add nodes with SSDs or HDDs. Obviously, SSDs are more expensive. So depending on use case, you can expand the storage without having to worry about or adding more nodes to the architecture. Azure Files, that's a solution that helps you expand your on-prem SMB shares. You can have that sync to the cloud, and then you can replicate those cloud files to another location. So you have a globally distributed SMB shares available to you. Okay. So these are the use cases we discussed. Just recap: branch office and edge location, virtual desktop, high performance SQL servers, trusted enterprise virtualization, and scale out architecture. All right, so this has been around for a while now, and we do have very strong customer evidence for who have been using it. And I would say the most common, or that you may actually have used it and not realize, is at McDonald's. So McDonald's, if you go and order, they have giant kiosks where you can place an order, which is based off Stack HCI. So they are using 2 node Fujitsu Prime Flex nodes, which is running Azure Stack HCI. It's secured by the cloud, so they use in a hybrid mode, and that's what they're running. So that would be the customer that you may have actually interacted in the past. Another example, Canadian Museum for Human Rights, they needed to reconcile on-premise infrastructure with cloud solution. They for their digital outreach program. Museum used Microsoft Azure Stack HCI solution to build hybrid solution. As a result, Canadian Museum for Human Rights gained high performance with the Stack HCI solution and it helps protect data with Azure Advanced Threat Protection. So they are taking advantage of Azure services with their Stack HCI solution. Another example is the city of Oklahoma. So the city of Oklahoma City, they have very large SQL deployment, and it is on hyperconverged infrastructure. The advantage for the city has been that Windows Server to them is easier to manage for their small IT team, and as a comment from Gibson is listed here as well. So yeah, they are taking benefit of using Stack HCI on their Dell EMC infrastructure. Another example, and Duet is using. They are a very large SQL customer as well. They are also utilizing Stack HCI, and they are benefiting from all the benefits of Stack HCI, low cost and hybrid connectivity. So how do you test it out? How do you try it? So as I mentioned, I will share the link to test this environment in Azure, as well as if you want to go ahead and try it in your data center, you can register and download the Stack HCI stack and admin center, and you are good to go from there. And there's a lot of documentation available for that. There's a lot of documentation on how to set it up. Stack HCI product page, announcement blogs, overview white papers. There are a bunch of YouTube videos on it that our team has posted there. So there's a lot of content, a lot of help available. And if you need further help, always reach out to us. We are here to help and help you be successful in your modernization efforts. Thank you. That's all I have today.